Okay, let's talk about this problem. You just had about between 5 and 10 minutes to work this problem by yourself. And let's see how we did. So the first and foremost, I told you to go and look for the amplitude, my omega, the period that requires that little formula, the h, your horizontal shift, your phase shift, the k, and then in addition to that, I'm asking you, what is that negative going to do to my graph? So, first and foremost, the A is the amplitude, here's my omega, h is phase shift, k is midline. So let's find out. Okay, I see a number that my cosine is multiplied by, and that is my amplitude. So my amplitude is 3. My omega. Omega is the number in front of the leading coefficient of your variable x, of your independent variable. And in this case, as we have looked at before, it's factored out of my expression, and my omega is 4. So that means then, calculating the period, my period then is 2 pi divided by the omega, which is 4. So my period therefore is pi over 2. Alright, so we're almost there. The h, now I'm looking again, oh that's the phase shift, that's my horizontal shift. So the phase shift is what we see inside the parentheses. Inside the parentheses. And I have my negative in here, so I know that my phase shift is going to be pi over 8 units to the right. To my right, to your right, that way. So pi over 8 to the right. Now finally the k, and again I'm reminding myself the k in this particular case is my midline, which indicates a vertical shift. My vertical shift means, or of a -1 means that the entire graph went down 1 unit. I'm just going to circle that green. So my k is a -1, or y is equal to a -1. Remember, the midline is a horizontal line. All right. So what does the negative do? That negative, you know that to be the reflection. And so let's talk about that. What does that mean, a reflection of the cosine? Generally, my cosine always starts at a maximum. After a reflection, the cosine starts at the minimum value of the function. Cosine. So make sure that you add to your own notes. Anything that is up here that you didn't have written down, fix it. Preferably with a different colored pen that you can remind yourself after the fact, oh yeah, that's what I missed. Cosine starts at the minimum. All right. So that's really the most important thing that I have to remember. Now that I have all this information, I have my axes all set up. We're going to be graphing the function. Actually, no. Let's talk about starting point and end point. So where does my function start? Well, we know that we have a phase shift pi over 8 to the right, and as you see along my x-axis, I've used the scale of pi over 8 for my x-axis. So however many little squares you want to use for pi over 8, make sure that you always use the scaling of your phase shift. Makes it easier, make that graph paper work for you. So that means I start at pi over 8 to the right, so that is 0 plus pi over 8 is pi over 8 along the x-axis. And my y-coordinate, well, let's backtrack a little bit. We know that the midline is at y is equal to a -1, so here is my midline. We figured out that the amplitude is 3, so there is 1, 2, 3. So my maximum value for the function is going to be 2. My amplitude is 3 again, so my minimum value of the function is going to be -1 minus 3 is at a -4. So normally we said that the cosine starts at the maximum. However, due to that negative, we know that the cosine starts at a minimum. The x-coordinate is pi over 8. My y-coordinate, therefore, is a -4. So you may want to write there, this cosine function starts at a minimum because of the reflection. All right. So I'm going to put a dot at pi over 8, -4. And then, where is it going to end? As we talked about last week, and as you could see on that video that I uploaded earlier, your endpoint is your starting x-coordinate, or the x-coordinate for the endpoint is the starting point plus 1 period. So I'm going to write this as pi over 8 plus pi over 2. And we know that the endpoint of this reflected cosine again is gonna, the y-coordinate again is gonna be at a -4. So now we need to figure out what is pi over 8 plus pi over 4, or pi over 2. So we need a common denominator. In order to multiply my 2 needs to be multiplied by 4 in order to get a denominator of 8. So that means that we have pi over 8 plus 4 pi over 8 is 5 pi over 8 -4. There's my ordered pair for my endpoint. So let's just write that down. Here's my 5 pi over 8. And again we have 1, 2, 3 significant points in the middle, in between, equal distance. So from my minimum, I'm going to go to the midline. At 3 pi over 8, I'm at my maximum. At pi over 2, I'm back at the midline. And here we have the graph of a -3 times the cosine of 4, parentheses x minus pi over 8, parentheses closed, -1. I hope that helped.